The Mysterious Affair at Styles, Agatha Christie's first ever novel, as well as the world's introduction to Hercule Poirot. It was adapted for television in 1990 for the series Agatha Christie's Poirot, though it was unusual in that all the other adaptations were shifted to the 1930s, regardless of when the books were published, while this one remained in 1917. Our first-person narrator is Poirot's original sidekick, Captain Arthur Hastings. Hastings is home from the First World War due to his injuries. His very first meeting with Poirot is actually not chronicled. Hastings met him in Belgium sometime before this and admired his detective skills. He meets Poirot again while staying with friends at Styles Court. Poirot is one of several Belgian refugees who's found safe haven in England with the assistance of the philanthropic Emily Inglethorpe. The Styles household consists of Emily, her new husband Alfred, whom everyone mistrusts and dislikes, her stepsons John and Lawrence Cavendish, John's wife, Mary, Emily's protégée, Cynthia Murdoch, who works in a hospital dispensary, and Evie Howard, Emily's companion. There's also a frequent visitor, ostensibly a friend of Mary's, Dr. Bauerstein. Y'all gotta stop cutting the doctors out of the adaptations. I'm running out of stand-ins. After a terrible fight with Emily, Evie ends up vacating the house. Just before leaving, she warns Hastings that Emily is in danger, most likely from the gold-digging Alfred. Evie's fears seem proven correct when, not long after, Emily has a sudden violent seizure in the middle of the night and dies. Hastings convinces John to let him bring in Poirot to investigate. Poirot readily dives in, but Hastings soon begins to believe Poirot is losing his gift for detection, as he seems to find significance in all the wrong clues. Even after Poirot is proven right again and again, Hastings stubbornly clings to his preconceived ideas. It's equal parts comical and aggravating. Evidence appears to pile up against Alfred, though Poirot expresses hesitation to push for an arrest. He doesn't straight out say the man is innocent, but he tells Hastings, "Mrs. Inglethorpe would never forgive me if I let Alfred Inglethorpe, her husband, be arrested now, when a word from me could save him." When a witness comes forward saying Alfred bought the poison that killed Emily, it seems Poirot will have to do just that. There's really not a lot I can say about the adaptation so far. The only significant alteration, other than Emily being a mother rather than stepmother, is that Dr. Bauerstein is left out. Apart from some minor embellishments, it's very much the same story. Of course, being me, I noticed when they skipped certain clues here and there, but the vast majority of them got included. Faithfulness as an adaptation aside, I was surprised when watching it for the first time in many years. I have memories of seeing it as a teenager and feeling bored. The pace felt grueling, the mood languid. But watching it today, it's relaxing. The tension builds steadily so that there's no need to rush the plot. Nothing needs to be added to keep it intriguing. The pace of the story matches that of the time and place in which it's set, transporting us to this bygone era where a cozy mystery is all the stimulation we require.
I'm afraid you find it very quiet down here.
My dear fellow, after the joys of France, that's just what I want.
Hi everyone, Miles from the editing room here. I wanted to take a quick break to talk about Teresa Pasquel's new book. Her previous book was Agatha Christie She Watched, which covers all sorts of Agatha Christie adaptations and touched a little bit on ones from around the globe. Her new book, International Agatha Christie She Watched, goes in-depth about Agatha Christie adaptations from countries all over the world, from China, France, Germany, Estonia, Italy, Japan, Sweden. It organizes the adaptations by country this time, and as you can see, she still rates the adaptations 1 out of 5, but instead of stars, she uses whatever murder method is involved. So it looks like this time we have camera tripods, spiders' webs, and UFOs, apparently. UFOs. Between these two books, you have pretty much every single Agatha Christie film or TV adaptation covered. I also want to give a shout out to the Springfield Community Players. I just finished a show with them, and they are trying to raise money to repair their roof. They have a GoFundMe page on their website. I've included a link to it in the description. If you can help, please go to the website and donate what you can. That's all. In the second half of the book, Alfred Inglethorpe is about to be arrested when Poirot proves he couldn't possibly have bought the poison. Suspicion then revolves from suspect to suspect until it settles on John, who ends up on trial for murder. Poirot is frustrated that he can't find the last link in the mystery, but then a chance remark by Hastings jogs his memory. He discovers an incriminating document that the murderer couldn't risk being found on his person, so he'd hidden it by tearing it up and disguising the pieces as spills to be used for lighting fires, a device Agatha Christie later reused in the Poirot stage play Black Coffee. The letter revealed that Alfred Inglethorpe and Evie Howard are actually a couple. They planned and carried out the murder so that Alfred would inherit his wife's money. He poisoned Emily by mixing her sleeping powder with her medicine, a combination that was harmless, except for the final dose, which was fatal, another device Christie used in later stories, such as The Coming of Mr. Quinn. Poirot prevented Alfred from being arrested too early because he knew Alfred had a plan in place for being tried and acquitted, so even if foolproof evidence turned up later, he couldn't be tried again for the same crime. I caught one line that I remember a commenter pointing out how it ended up in A Haunting in Venice.
Don't look at me like I'm a suspect. We're old friends.
Every murderer is somebody's old friend.
Once again, the film is both accurate and well dramatized. I like how they portrayed Alfred as unctuous, sinister, and smug, and Evie made a convincing transformation from belligerent to love-struck. The scene with Hastings' botched marriage proposal was done perfectly. I've said it before, I'm a huge fan of Hugh Fraser's portrayal of Hastings to the point where I prefer him over his book counterpart. They both habitually misinterpret Poirot's hints, but while book Hastings does it out of hubris, I like to think film Hastings' misinterpretations come more from a place of innocence. I do want to point out a few book elements the movie decided to discard. Dr. Bauerstein at one point reaches the top of Hastings' suspect list, but he turns out to be a German spy, not a murderer. Lawrence's mistaken suspicion and shielding of Cynthia is kept in, but they leave out Poirot's cryptic message to him about a missing coffee cup that serves as another red herring. Apparently, the murder was supposed to take place one day earlier. The reason Alfred wrote a letter to Evie was to reassure her that everything was still going according to plan. At the end, we find out Poirot could easily have proven John innocent, but he let him stand trial in order to save John and Mary's marriage. Probably okay that got scrapped. However, one thing I would have liked to see, and that would have paid off some questions that the film left unanswered, was Mary's full depth of character. At one point in the film, Poirot tells us that Mary is a profoundly jealous woman, but in the book, we got a whole subplot consisting of her interactions with Hastings, culminating in a monologue about how her marriage came to be, and how it's fallen apart. Having just posted my video about Witness for the Prosecution, I recognize Mary as an early prototype for the character Romaine Vole. She's grateful to her husband for rescuing her, but she says she feels trapped in her marriage to him. But then in the end, it turns out she's deeply in love with him. These traits appear in other characters throughout Christie's work, such as the ballet dancer Anna Denman in the short story Harlequin's Lane. Anyway, Mary's deal is that she at first feared that she'd poisoned Emily by accident. She thought Emily was hiding evidence of John's infidelity, so she drugged both Emily and Cynthia in order to search Emily's room at night. That's why it took so long for the poison to take effect. The movie leaves that unexplained.
How very irritating.
And that's it. Even with these deletions, the characters still shine, and the movie is excellent. I'm glad I gave it another watch. If not for this channel, I don't know if I'd ever have bothered with it. I don't think I've seen it in, 25 years. It's a different perspective. One of my first videos was about the 10 best Poirot films. If I'd seen this one more recently, it might have made the list. Well, having covered the first Poirot novel, I think logically the next one I cover should be the first Miss Marple novel, The Murder at the Vicarage. I hope you'll join me. Thanks for watching.